Hello guys! Immediate impact that will change everything? Let's analyze the news from Bama. First of all, subscribe to the channel to receive more news. Malachi Moore will continue to be a key player in Alabama's defensive scheme, without facing any type of suspension after the events that occurred in the game against Vanderbilt. Coach Kalen DeBoer's decision, announced in his press conference, demonstrates the type of leadership that has characterized his time at Alabama. At a time when many expected a more rigorous attitude from the coach, DeBoer chose a path that reinforces trust and unity within the team. When asked about a possible suspension, DeBoer was categorical in his answer, simply saying no. He highlighted the way Moore handled the situation, taking full responsibility for his actions. To DeBoer, this behavior is emblematic of a true leader within the team, and rather than penalize him, he chose to publicly support Moore. This decision sends a clear message that the coach trusts his players to learn from their mistakes and grow as a team. This choice by DeBoer should not be underestimated. In an environment where disciplinary decisions can quickly divide a locker room, he chose to defend Moore, showing that he believes in his athlete's character and commitment. It is this type of stance that tends to further strengthen the bonds within the team and inspire mutual respect between coach and players. DeBoer is shaping a culture at Alabama that values not only on-field performance, but also accountability and personal growth for each of his players. While some fans or analysts may have expected a harsher reaction from DeBoer, it is hard to deny the positive impact this approach will have on the group. Supporting Malachi Moore is not just about keeping a veteran player on the field, it's a testament to the kind of team DeBoer wants to build, a team that supports each other through tough times, learns from mistakes, and emerges stronger and more united. This decision could end up being one of the defining moments in Alabama's chemistry throughout the season. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts at the end of the video. The Alabama Crimson Tide suffered one of the most shocking losses in recent history, falling to Vanderbilt 40-35 in a game that will be remembered by both Coach Kalen DeBoer and fans alike. This was not just any loss, it was a 4-decade losing streak to the Commodores, a team that had always been seen as a supporting player in the SEC. For the Crimson Tide fans who packed Vanderbilt Stadium, the disappointment was invaluable. What should have been another step toward a championship-winning season turned into a night of nightmares. DeBoer, in his first season at the helm of Alabama, now bears the burden of a loss that many of the legendary coaches who came before him were able to avoid. Even Nick Saban lost to Louisiana Monroe in his first season, but the circumstances were much different. Saban did not inherit a championship-caliber roster, and the Crimson Tide were not even ranked at the time. DeBoer, on the other hand, took over a team that had been dreaming of a national title, coming off a Rose Bowl appearance. This loss puts a huge obstacle in the way, and while the season's goals are still achievable, the shock of this result will hardly be forgotten anytime soon. The performance of Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia deserves special mention. The player, who had already made history by defeating Auburn the previous season while playing for New Mexico State, repeated the feat by leading his new team to a monumental victory against Alabama. Pavia was the star of the game, leading the Commodores' offense with impressive precision, completing 16 of 20 passes and racking up significant rushing yards. His presence on the field was key to destabilizing the Crimson Tide defense, which seemed lost from the start. Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe had his moments, but Pavia's efficiency and the Alabama defense's lack of response ultimately sealed the game's fate. The loss is a major blow to Alabama, especially when it comes to the defense, which was pushed into a hole it never managed to dig itself out of. The Crimson Tide's defensive unit simply failed to show up on the field, allowing Vanderbilt to control possession for more than 70% of the game. The question now is whether Coach DeBoer can bounce back from such a humiliating defeat. Saban was able to overcome his own embarrassing loss in his Alabama debut and become the greatest coach of all time. But DeBoer, in losing to a team like Vanderbilt, now bears the burden of a result that will go down as one of the most surprising in SEC history. Alabama's preparation for this game also raises questions. Recent comments from Nick Saban, made while appearing on ESPN's College Game Day, suggested that Vanderbilt was not a tough place for visiting teams, and that may have contributed to the team's overconfidence. However, by the end of the game, Alabama fans in red were mere spectators to a historic moment for Vanderbilt, as the final horn sounded to seal the victory and Commodores fans stormed the field, celebrating a victory few believed possible. This result not only changes the narrative of Alabama's season, but it also raises questions about the new era under Kalen DeBoer. The Crimson Tide can still achieve their most ambitious goals, but now there is a shadow hanging over the team. Will DeBoer be able to bounce back from this loss like Saban did so many years ago? Or will this loss become the turning point that marks his tenure at Alabama? Time will tell, but one thing is certain, this game will be remembered for a long time by Crimson Tide fans. But let's move on. Otis' decision to enter the transfer portal was one of the most shocking pieces of news for the Alabama football program this week, adding yet another layer of uncertainty to a team still trying to recover from a shocking loss to Vanderbilt. Otis, a talented defensive lineman who arrived at Alabama with high expectations, has now opted to preserve his redshirt year and pursue new opportunities elsewhere, raising questions about the future of the defensive line under Kalen DeBoer. Otis was a key figure as a freshman, starting 10 games and showing tremendous potential for the Crimson Tide defense. However, what should have been a steady progression has turned into a period of stagnation as the player has suffered a number of injuries that have impacted his performance. Although he has started 3 games this season, in the last 2 meetings against Wisconsin and Georgia, Otis has been limited to just 25 snaps, which no doubt influenced his decision to seek more playing time elsewhere. During the press conference, Coach DeBoer was open about the matter, noting that he had already noticed Otis' tendency to seek the transfer portal. He mentioned that, in addition to playing time, other factors, such as health and personal issues, also played a role in the player's decision. For the coach, the priority now is to focus on players who are fully committed to the program and ready to help Alabama win, especially with the important matchup against South Carolina looming. While Otis' departure did not take the program completely by surprise, it does represent a significant blow to the depth of the defensive line. Alabama still has a talented rotation on the line, but as DeBoer knows, you can never have enough players at a position so crucial to defensive success. The loss of a talent like Otis, especially in the midst of a season that has already presented unexpected challenges, requires immediate adjustments from the coaching staff to ensure the Crimson Tide remains competitive in the coming weeks. Otis' situation reflects an increasingly common dynamic in college football, the quest for better playing opportunities, often accelerated by the ease of the transfer portal and the opportunities created by nil deals. In Otis' case, the desire to preserve a year of eligibility while seeking more playing time is understandable, but it also underscores the challenge that programs like Alabama face in striking a healthy balance between retaining talent on the roster and providing the development opportunities and playing time those players seek. With that, Alabama now moves on, focused on correcting the mistakes of last game and preparing for a matchup with South Carolina. The defense, which already struggled in the loss to Vanderbilt, will have to find ways to compensate for Otis' absence and continue to be strong this season. That's unexpected, but let's move on. Houston Mullet's arrival at Alabama basketball brings a new dimension to Nate Oats' roster for the 2024-25 season. Coming out of Pepperdine, Mullet has already demonstrated his ability as a reliable shooter, and that's exactly what caught the attention of Oats and his coaching staff. Mullet, who committed to the Crimson Tide before the NCAA tournament even began, joined a team that was in the midst of a transformation, with several departures in the transfer portal and the possibility of some key players not returning. However, the situation has changed significantly since his initial commitment. While Alabama lost key players such as Chris Parker, Rylan Griffin and Aaron Estrada, the return of names like Mark Sears, along with the arrival of new talents like Latrell Wrightsell and Aiden Holloway, has created fierce competition for minutes on the court. Still, Mullet's ability to hit long shots is a valuable asset that he brings to Alabama's dynamic, spaced-out offense that prioritizes creating open three-point opportunities. Mullet, who offers not only his efficiency as a three-point shooter, but also the potential to be a solid wing defender, is a must in Oates' scheme. While his playing time may be limited, especially when the roster is complete with the return of Chris Youngblood from injury, Mullet has an early chance to break out. He comes to Alabama averaging 14.7 points per game in his final season at Pepperdine and an impressive 37% three-point shooting rate over his career. That, combined with his efficient transition game, where he ranked in the 89th percentile in the nation in points per possession, makes Mullet a valuable asset to the team, especially in fast break situations and fast-paced playmaking. Mullet is expected to adjust to a role where he won't have the ball in his hands as often, something he seems to have already embraced. Wearing number 95, Mullet has demonstrated a clear understanding of his role as a floor spacer, someone who waits patiently for his opportunities on the perimeter. With so many talented playmakers around him, including Sears and new guards like Fillon and Holloway, Mullet's job will be to capitalize on opportunities that arise on well-placed three-pointers, a skill he demonstrated so well at Pepperdine, especially in transition. The big challenge for Mullet will be staying competitive and engaged, even on a deep roster full of options. Knowing that Nate Oates demands a lot of his players defensively, Mullet will have to demonstrate that he can be trusted on both offense and defense to earn valuable minutes. Alabama, known for its intensity on both ends of the floor, will need every player who steps on the floor to contribute consistently, and Mullet has the tools to be that essential piece, especially in crucial moments. With the start of the season approaching, Mullet will have the opportunity to establish himself in the rotation during Youngblood's absence. However, his long-term future with the team will depend on his ability to adapt, embrace his role, and continue to be a dangerous shooter and reliable defensive presence. Alabama basketball enters another season with high expectations, and having a weapon like Houston Mullet on the bench, ready to step in and make an impact, only reinforces the depth and versatility of this roster that promises to be one of the most competitive in the conference. What do you think of the current basketball and football season? Let us know in the comments.